ER staff laughed at the new nurse. The moment. A Navy helicopter came looking for her. The call came in at 6:47 in the morning, and by the time the double doors of the emergency room slammed open, the stretcher was already moving fast down the hallway. A man in his 50s, chest wound, no pulse for 2 minutes in the back of the ambulance. The paramedic was shouting numbers. A resident was running alongside the stretcher, one hand on the man's arm, the other reaching for a syringe. The entire room shifted. Nurses turned, monitors beeped louder, someone knocked over a tray of supplies, and the sound of it hitting the floor cut through everything. Standing at the edge of all of it was a woman who had just walked in for her first shift. Her name was Maya Reeves. She was 34 years old. She had driven 40 minutes in the dark to get here, parked in the wrong lot, walked through the wrong entrance, and now stood at the nurse's station with her badge crooked and her scrubs so stiff they looked like they had never been washed. She held her paperwork in both hands. She was looking at the man on the stretcher the way a person looks at something they already understand. Nobody noticed that part. What they noticed was the badge, and the scrubs, and the fact that she asked, quietly, to no one in particular, where the crash cart was kept. A nurse named Donna turned from her computer screen. Donna had been working this ER for 19 years. She had seen residents cry in supply closets and attendings throw charts across rooms, and patients arrive in conditions that were not described in textbooks. She had a way of looking at new people that was not unkind, but was also not warm. She looked at Maya the way you look at a plant someone has placed on your desk without asking. "Orientation is down the hall," Donna said. "Room 4. Someone will come get you." Maya nodded. She went to room 4. She sat down in a plastic chair and waited. On the other side of the wall, the man with the chest wound was fighting for his life with a team of 6 people around him. Maya could hear it. The calls, the numbers, the sound of equipment moving fast. She sat very still. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her eyes were on the door. Room 4 had a motivational poster on the wall. It showed a lighthouse and said something about guiding others through the dark. Maya read it once, then looked away. 20 minutes later, a young nurse named Claire came to collect her. Claire was cheerful in the specific way that people are cheerful when they are trying to make up for a situation they know is uncomfortable. She smiled too wide and spoke too fast, and said things like, "You'll love it here once you get used to the rhythm," and, "Everyone is a little lost in the beginning. Don't worry about it." Maya did not look lost. She looked like she was measuring the hallway. The orientation was short. Claire walked her through the layout, the supply rooms, the medication station, the break room, the bathroom. She showed her how to log into the electronic health record system, which was old and slow, and required 3 separate passwords to access anything. Maya sat down at the computer and stared at it. "It takes a little getting used to," Claire said. Maya typed something. The screen gave her an error message. She typed something else. Another error. Donna appeared in the doorway. She was holding a chart and watching. "Wrong field," Donna said, without moving from the door. "You put the patient ID in the date box." Maya looked at the screen. She had, in fact, done exactly that. She corrected it without comment. From somewhere down the hall, a nurse named Patrick laughed. Not at anything in particular, but the timing of it landed in the room like a stone dropped in still water. Claire looked at her shoes. Donna went back to her station. Maya logged into the system. It took her 4 minutes, which was slower than it should have been. She knew that. She moved on. The first half of the shift passed the way first shifts always pass, slowly, awkwardly, with the specific discomfort of being new somewhere that has its own language, its own rhythms, its own invisible rules that no one writes down. Maya asked questions when she needed to. She listened more than she spoke. She made one mistake with a supply order, realized it herself, and corrected it before anyone had to tell her. Patrick noticed the mistake first and mentioned it to Claire, who mentioned it to another nurse named Greg, and by the afternoon break, it had become a small story that moved around the nurses' station in whispers and half smiles. Not cruel, but not kind either. The kind of thing that happens in every workplace when someone new comes in and stumbles, and the people who have been there long enough feel, for just a moment, the small relief of knowing more than someone else. Maya was in the break room when she heard it. Not the words, but the sound. The particular pitch of people talking about someone who is not in the room. She knew that sound. She had heard it in other places, in other circumstances. and she understood it the way you understand weather. It comes, it goes, it does not change the ground. She ate her lunch, a sandwich she had made at 4 in the morning, wrapped in foil, slightly flattened from the bag. She ate it without hurrying. She drank water, she looked at the wall. Donna came in for coffee and saw her sitting there alone and almost said something. Almost. Instead, she poured her coffee and left. At 2 in the afternoon, the attending physician, Dr. Neil Harlan, stopped by the station where Maya was finishing a set of patient notes. He was a tall man in his late 40s with the kind of face that had stopped being impressed by things a long time ago. He read over her shoulder for a moment without announcing himself. "Your charting is clean," he said. He sounded surprised. "Thank you," Maya said. She did not look up. He stood there for another second, as if he was waiting for her to explain herself. She did not. He moved on. By the end of the shift, the small stories about the wrong field and the supply order had already begun to fade, replaced by newer, more interesting things. A patient had tried to leave in his hospital gown and made it halfway to the parking lot. A resident had written a prescription for the wrong dosage and Donna had caught it before it left the station. These were better stories. Maya's stumbles slipped to the back. She clocked out at 7 in the evening. She returned her temporary badge to the front desk. She walked to her car in the correct parking lot this time. She sat behind the wheel for a moment before starting the engine. The day had been what it was. She had made mistakes that did not matter, and done things that nobody had noticed. That was fine. She had started in harder places than this. She had started in places where a mistake meant something that could not be corrected, and where nobody had time to notice anything except the next decision. This was different. She could learn this. She started the engine and drove home in the dark. The next morning she came back. Same stiff scrubs, badge straightened this time. She went to the correct entrance without thinking about it. She sat down at the computer, logged in on the first try, and pulled up her patient list. Donna was at the station. She saw Maya log in, and looked briefly at the clock, then back at her screen. Maya was 4 minutes early. Donna did not say anything about it, but she moved her coffee cup to the left side of her station, which was what she always did when she was making space for someone. Maya did not notice, but the small motion was there, and it was something, even if nobody named it yet. Down the hall, behind the double doors, the emergency room was already busy. The lights were on. The monitors were beeping. Somewhere a phone was ringing and nobody was answering it yet. Maya put her hands on the keyboard. The day began. The emergency room at Coastal General was the kind of place that did not stop. It did not slow down for weekends or holidays or the quiet hours between 2 and 4 in the morning when the rest of the city finally went to sleep. It ran, constantly, like a machine that had forgotten how to idle. The nurses who worked there knew this. The ones who had been there long enough did not think about it anymore. It was simply the water they swam in. Maya Reeves had been swimming in different water for most of her adult life. She had grown up in a small town in the western part of Virginia, the kind of town where everybody knew your last name and your grandmother's last name, and probably the name of the dog you had when you were 8 years old. Her mother taught 3rd grade. Her father managed a hardware store. It was a quiet life, a good life, and Maya had loved it the way you love a place that is safe, fully, without thinking about it, until the moment you leave. She left at 18 to join the Navy. She had not planned it, exactly. It had grown out of something she noticed about herself when she was 17, that in a crisis she did not freeze. A car accident on the road outside her school, and while the other students stood on the sidewalk with their phones out, Maya had gone to the driver. She had not known what to do, not technically, but she had gone. She had stayed. She had kept the woman calm until the ambulance came, and when the paramedics arrived, she had already loosened the woman's collar and moved her hands away from the steering wheel and done 2 or 3 other small things that the paramedic later told her had mattered. She enlisted the following spring. Her mother cried at the kitchen table. Her father drove her to the recruiting office and shook her hand in the parking lot like she was already someone different, and she supposed she already was. The Navy sent her to nursing school, then to field training, then to places that she did not talk about at family dinners. She learned things in those places that you cannot learn anywhere else. How to make a decision in the space of 2 seconds when every option is bad. How to keep your voice level when everything around you is loud. How to read a patient not just with instruments, but with your eyes, your hands, the specific way a person holds their breath when something is wrong inside them. She did tours in places where the air smelled like dust and heat and burning fuel. She worked in field hospitals that were not hospitals so much as organized tents with too few supplies and too many patients. She worked on helicopters, which was the thing she loved most, the work of keeping someone alive in the air, with the wind coming through the open door, and the ground far below and every second counting, in a way that was very clean and very clear. She rose to the rank of lieutenant commander. She was good at her job the way certain people are good at things. Not just skilled, but suited to it, the way a lock is suited to its key. Then something happened on her last deployment. She did not talk about what happened. The details lived in reports and debriefs, and the pages of a file she had never asked to read. What she carried was not the facts, but the weight of them, the specific heaviness that settles into a person when they have done everything right, and something has still gone wrong. She put in her papers 8 months ago. She drove south. She rented a small apartment near the coast and spent 3 weeks doing very little, which was something she had never done before and found she was not good at. She woke up at 5 every morning from habit. She cooked breakfast she did not taste. She walked along the waterfront and watched the ships and felt something she did not have a word for. Then she applied for the nursing position at Coastal General. She had not applied because she was ready. She had applied because standing still was harder than moving, and she needed to be somewhere with people who needed something, and that was the only job she had ever known how to do. The ER did not know any of this. Her file said she had 12 years of nursing experience. It listed her certifications, which were numerous and specific. It did not explain what those certifications had required of her, or what it meant to hold them. The hospital had a policy about military records. They were noted, not asked about. Dr. Harlan had glanced at her file when it crossed his desk. 12 years, he had thought. Good. He needed experienced nurses. He had not looked further. Donna had not seen the file at all. So when Maya sat down each morning at the old computer with the 3 passwords, when she asked careful questions about things she genuinely did not know, the layout of this specific hospital, the names of the supply vendors, the particular protocols that Coastal General used, nobody understood what those questions cost her. She was asking them from a place of deep competence, not from a place of inexperience. She was rebuilding, in this new room, a map she already knew how to read. The shape of the map was just different here. Patrick did not know this when he left. Greg did not know it when he passed the story along. Claire did not know it when she walked Maya through the supply rooms with her too wide smile, explaining things that Maya had known longer than Claire had been a nurse. Maya did not tell them. This was not false modesty. It was something else, a choice she had made, somewhere between leaving the Navy and walking through the doors of this ER, that she was going to earn her place here the way you earn any place, by showing up and doing the work, not by explaining herself. She had been somewhere that did not require her to explain herself because the work had done the explaining for her. She was learning that this world was different, that here, people introduced themselves with their credentials before they introduced themselves with their hands. She was still learning the language of it. On her 3rd shift, she was assigned to low-acuity patients. This was Donna's doing, and everyone at the station understood what it meant. Low acuity was paperwork and vitals and discharge instructions. It was where you put someone you were not yet sure about. It was not an insult exactly, but it was not nothing either. Maya took the clipboard. She went to her patients. She did the work with the same attention she gave to everything. Complete, quiet, without shortcuts. An older man named George was in room 7, waiting for lab results. He was 71, sharp-eyed, and bored. He had been in this room for 2 hours and had already read the pamphlet on the wall twice. "You're new," he said, when Maya came in to take his blood pressure. "I am," she said. "You seem nervous," he said. She fastened the cuff around his arm and pressed the button on the monitor. She looked at him directly. "I'm not," she said. He studied her face for a moment. "No," he said. "I suppose you're not." He settled back against the pillow. "You just seem like you're somewhere else." She wrote down his numbers. They were good. "Where are you? Somewhere else?" he asked. "Somewhere that doesn't matter right now," she said. "Right now, I'm here." He seemed satisfied with that. She gathered her things. At the door, she stopped. "Your results will be back in about 40 minutes, she said. "The number they're looking at will probably be normal, but they'll want to run it twice to be sure because of your history. If it is normal, you'll be home for dinner." He looked at her. Nobody told me that. I know, she said, but it's true. She left. He watched the door close behind her. He did not call the nurse's station to complain about the wait, as he had been planning to. He picked up the pamphlet and read it a third time instead. Down the hall, Patrick was telling Claire that the new nurse seemed like she might not last the month. Claire nodded the way you nod when you are not sure you agree but don't want to say so. Maya was at the computer, updating George's chart. She typed without looking at the keyboard. She did it quickly and without errors. She had been typing patient notes in vehicles, moving at 120 miles an hour. A stationary desk was not a problem. She finished the chart. She moved to the next patient. Outside the windows of Coastal General, the sky was moving from blue to gray. A shift change was coming. The light in the ER did not change with it. It never did. It was always the same flat, permanent brightness that made every hour feel like the same hour. Maya worked through it, patient by patient, note by note. She was still there when the sky went fully dark, and the next shift came on, and the double doors opened again to let in the night. She did not think about helicopters. She thought about the work in front of her, and she did it, and she went home, and she came back. That was the rhythm of it. That was what she had chosen. She was going to learn to live inside it, even if it took longer than she wanted, even if it cost her things she had not expected to pay. She was not in a hurry. She had been in places where hurrying was life or death. This was not that. But something was coming. She did not know what. She did not expect anything. She simply came back every morning 4 minutes early and put her hands on the keyboard and began again. The radio in the ambulance bay crackled at 4:18 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, and the dispatcher's voice was flat and fast in the way that voices get when the situation is bad and there is no time to make it sound any other way. 4 incoming, car and truck collision on the highway interchange 3 miles east. 1 critical, 2 serious, 1 unknown. ETA 6 minutes. The charge nurse, a compact, efficient man named Ray, was already moving before the message finished. He pulled up the board. He called names. He started designating rooms. The ER shifted into the specific kind of motion that is not panic, but is very close to panic's edge, controlled by training and habit, and the knowledge that in 6 minutes there would not be time to decide anything that had not already been decided. Donna was at the main station. She began pulling supplies without being told, the specific supplies that came before the stretcher, the ones that needed to be ready before the team arrived. Her hands moved across the shelves with the certainty of someone who had done this hundreds of times. Maya was at the computer in the corridor, finishing a set of discharge notes. She heard the radio. She heard the numbers. She heard the ETA. She pressed save on the notes. She stood up. She did not run to the station. She walked, quickly, but not running, and she appeared at Donna's elbow just as Donna was counting IV lines. "Where do you need me?" Maya asked. Donna glanced at her. "Room 3. Keep it clear. The critical is going in there, and we don't need traffic." Maya went to room 3. She looked at the setup. She looked at the crash cart. She looked at the overhead light position, and the angle of the bed, and the distance between the supply cabinet and the attending physician's position. She made 3 small adjustments, moved the IV pole 6 inches to the left, angled the tray table, checked the oxygen flow, and turned it to the setting that would be needed before they asked for it. She stepped back and stood near the wall. Ray put his head in the door. "New nurse, right, Maya?" "Yes. You can observe. Don't get in the way." "Understood," she said. He left. The doors at the end of the hall banged open. The stretchers came in. The critical patient was a man named Owen, 52 years old, who had been driving a pickup truck when the car in front of him stopped without warning. The impact had been at highway speed. He had been unconscious at the scene and was conscious now, barely, in the way that people are conscious when their body is arguing with itself about whether to keep going. Dr. Harlan came in fast. Behind him, a resident named Paul who was good but young, and Claire, and a nurse named Greg who was experienced and calm. They surrounded Owen's stretcher. The numbers from the paramedic came in a rush, blood pressure dropping, oxygen low, likely internal bleeding, probable rib fractures, left side. Harlan called orders. Greg moved. Claire moved. Paul was at the medication tray. Maya stood near the wall. She watched. She watched the way she had been trained to watch. Not just the patient, but the room, the positions of the team, the flow of movement, the gaps. There was a gap. The Paul was drawing medication with his right hand and trying to hold the tray steady with his left, and the tray was not going to stay steady. And in 3 seconds he was going to lose control of it, and the floor was going to be covered in supplies that were needed right now. Maya saw it before it happened. She crossed the room in 4 steps and put her hand on the tray firmly, without a word, holding it level while Paul drew the medication. He looked at her, startled. She said nothing. She held the tray. He finished. She released it and stepped back. Harlan had not looked up, but he had registered the motion, the way a person registers something in peripheral vision without turning toward it. Owen's blood pressure dropped further. Harlan called for the reading again. Claire gave it. Harlan adjusted his order, and then Greg, good, experienced, calm Greg, reached for the wrong medication. Not the wrong drug, but the wrong concentration. It was a small difference. It was the kind of difference that happens when things are moving fast, and 2 bottles are sitting next to each other, and you grab the closer one. Maya said, "That's the 0.5. You want the 0.9. Everyone in the room stopped. 1 second. A full, complete stop. Greg looked at the bottle in his hand. He looked at the label. He set it down and picked up the other one. Donna, who had appeared in the doorway 2 minutes ago to monitor the room, was very still. Harlan looked at Maya. "You sure?" "Yes," she said. "How sure?" She met his eyes. Completely. He looked at her for 1 more second. Then he turned back to Owen. "Use the 0.9. Let's go." The room resumed. The next 12 minutes were the kind of 12 minutes that happen in emergency rooms. Loud, fast, each second filled with decision and motion and the controlled urgency of people who are trying to keep a man's body from giving up. Owen's blood pressure stabilized. His oxygen came up. His color, which had been the particular gray of a person who is losing, began to shift toward something less frightening. He was not out of danger, but he was moving in the right direction. When the immediate crisis passed, and the room shifted into the slower, more deliberate work of monitoring and stabilizing, Harlan stepped back from the bedside. He peeled off his gloves. He looked across the room at Maya, who had returned to her position near the wall. "Where did you train?" he asked. "Navy," she said. He looked at her. "Flight nursing?" "Yes." He was quiet for a moment. He looked at Owen, then back at Maya. "How many of these have you run?" She held his gaze. "A few hundred." The room was not loud anymore. It had the particular quiet that settles after a crisis when everyone is breathing again and the monitors are beeping in a slower, more reassuring rhythm. Paul was writing notes. Greg was adjusting Owen's IV. Claire was documenting. Donna had not moved from the doorway. She was looking at Maya the way you look at something when you realize you have been seeing it wrong. Not with embarrassment, not yet. With the specific attention of someone who is revising a story in their head while the person the story is about is standing right there in front of them. Maya did not notice Donna looking. She was watching Owen's monitor. His numbers were holding. She looked at the oxygen reading and then at the drip rate, and then at nothing in particular, the way you look when you are calculating something that does not need a calculator. Ray came in to check the room. He looked at Owen. He looked at the board. He looked at Maya. "Good catch," he said, meaning the medication. "Standard," she said. He raised an eyebrow. She did not elaborate. He left. Greg followed him out a minute later. Paul finished his notes and excused himself. Harlan stayed at the bedside for another 5 minutes. Then he too moved toward the door. He paused next to Maya on his way out. "I looked at your file last week," he said quietly. "I didn't look hard enough." She said nothing. "I will now," he said, and he left. The room was quiet. Owen's chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. A monitor beeped every few seconds. Maya stood next to the wall where she had been standing for the last 40 minutes, and she looked at the man in the bed, and she thought what she always thought after a moment like this. Not about herself, not about what she had done, but about the next few hours, and what they would require, and whether everything that needed to happen was going to happen in the right order. Donna was still in the doorway. "You knew that medication was wrong before anyone else saw it," Donna said. "Not a question." "Yes," Maya said. "You were watching for that." "I was watching for everything." Donna was quiet. In the hallway behind her, the ER was resuming its regular volume. Phones and monitors and voices and the sound of someone in a room down the corridor asking for water. The ordinary noise of the place. "How long have you been a nurse?" Donna asked. 12 years, Maya said. "Same as it says in my file." Donna absorbed that. She looked at Owen, then back at Maya. "Why didn't you say something? When you came in, why didn't you tell anyone?" Maya considered the question. She looked at the floor for a moment, then back up. "Because it wouldn't have meant anything yet," she said. "Words don't mean what actions mean. I needed to be somewhere long enough for the actions to say it." Donna nodded slowly. She seemed to be deciding something. "Tomorrow," Donna said, "I'm going to put you on a higher acuity list." Maya said, "I know how to handle a full patient load." "I know," Donna said. "That's why." She left. Maya stayed in room 3 for another few minutes, watching Owen breathe, checking the numbers one more time, adjusting nothing because nothing needed adjusting. Then she went back to the hallway. She went to the computer. She pulled up her notes from before the call had come in, the ones she had saved when the radio crackled. She finished them. She moved to the next chart. She worked until the end of her shift. Nobody laughed about anything that afternoon. Not about wrong fields in the computer system. Not about supply orders. Not about anything. The nurse's station was different after what had happened in room 3. Not dramatically different. No one made a speech. No one apologized. No one pulled Maya aside to say they had misjudged her. It was quieter than that. It was the kind of difference that happens when a room adjusts to something without discussing it. People gave her more space at the station. They looked at her a little longer when she spoke. Greg, who had reached for the wrong bottle, worked near her for the rest of the shift without saying much, but also without the distance he had kept before. Patrick was not in that afternoon. He had switched shifts. He would come back the next day and feel something in the room that he could not name, a slight rearrangement of the social weather, and he would ask Claire what had happened. Claire would take a moment to answer. She would say, "Something in room 3. She would not know how to say the rest of it. Maya drove home that evening the way she always drove, carefully, without music, watching the road. She stopped at a gas station and bought a bottle of water and a granola bar and ate the granola bar in the parking lot because she had not eaten since the sandwich at noon. The night was cool. The parking lot lights were on. Somewhere above the cloud cover, she knew, there were stars. And somewhere above the stars there was nothing. And that was fine. And she was fine. And Owen was going to be fine. She finished the granola bar. She started the engine. She went home. She was back at Coastal General at 6:56 the next morning, 4 minutes early, with her badge straight and her hands steady, and the quiet certainty of a person who has already decided what they are. The sound reached the ER before anything else did. It was a Thursday morning, just past 9, and the department was in the particular rhythm of mid-morning, busy but not overwhelming. The overnight cases transferred or discharged, the new day building toward the lunch hour rush that always brought in the sprains and the fevers and the people who had been waiting since Tuesday to see if the pain would go away on its own. Donna was at the nurse's station with a coffee cup in her hand when she heard it. A low, heavy beat in the air. Not a sound exactly, more like a pressure, the kind of thing you feel in your chest before you identify it with your ears. She put her coffee down without thinking about it. She looked at the ceiling, then at the window. Helicopters came to Coastal General regularly. The rooftop helipad was active, medevac arrivals were common, but this sound was different. It was not the sound of a helicopter on approach, it was the sound of a helicopter circling, deliberate, methodical, like something looking for something. Ray noticed it from the corridor. He stopped walking and tilted his head, and then kept moving because there were patients to see. Patrick, who was back from his shift swap, looked up from the medication tray and said, "What is that?" Nobody answered. The circling sound continued for another 90 seconds. Then it began to descend, not toward the helipad at first. It went around twice more, lower each time, before it settled onto the roof in a landing that was precise and controlled and oddly quiet at the end, as though the pilot was trying not to disturb anything. That was unusual. Medevac pilots landed fast. Military pilots landed like they had been told the exact position they were supposed to occupy and intended to occupy it exactly. Maya was in room 6, checking on a patient named Carol, who had come in with chest tightness, and was now resting comfortably while they waited for her second round of blood work. Carol was 63 and had strong opinions about hospital pillow density, which she was sharing with Maya when the intercom at the nurses' station crackled. "Can someone from nursing administration come to the main ER entrance?" said the security desk. "We have 2 visitors asking for a specific staff member by name." Carol was still talking about the pillows. Maya adjusted Carol's blanket, said she would be back to check on the results, and stepped into the hallway. Down at the main entrance, through the glass of the double doors, she could see 2 figures in the waiting area. She could not see them clearly from this distance. She could see the color of their uniforms. Navy service dress. Dark, formal, precise. The kind of uniform worn when the purpose of the visit is official. She stopped walking. She was 20 feet from the nurse's station. Donna was behind the desk. Ray was nearby. Patrick was at the medication tray. Everything around her was the ordinary noise of the ER. Monitors, phones, the distant voice of a resident in another room, the sound of a supply cart rolling down the hall. She stood there for a moment. Just a moment. Then she walked to the front desk. The security officer, a man named Dale who had worked the desk for 11 years and had seen most things, looked at her with an expression she could not fully read. "They asked for you," Dale said, "by rank." Maya looked through the glass. The 2 officers had seen her now. The taller one, a commander, she could read the insignia from here, straightened slightly. Not standing to attention, just straightening. The way you straighten when you see the person you came for. She pushed through the doors. "Lieutenant Commander Reeves," the commander said. His name was Harris. She did not know him personally, but she knew his type. Precise, organized, here because he had been sent, and not because he had chosen to come. "I'm not Lieutenant Commander anymore," she said. "I'm a staff nurse." "I understand," Harris said. He glanced at the other officer, a lieutenant named Bell who was holding a folder. "We're aware of your separation, but the situation is unusual." "What situation?" Harris said. "There was a training exercise this morning, 40 miles offshore. A vessel went down partially. Not a sinking, but a structural failure during drills. 13 people in the water before they got things under control. 8 were recovered quickly. 5 had significant injuries. 3 of those are critical." Maya was listening. She had the expression of someone who is calculating while also standing still. "The forward medical team is stretched," Harris continued. "The closest available medical helicopter is 45 minutes out. We have transport ready. We are looking for someone with mass casualty triage certification, hypothermia protocol training, and flight nursing experience." He paused. "Your file is current. Your certifications don't expire for another 8 months. And you are 60 miles from the coast." "I separated 8 months ago," Maya said. "Yes," Harris said. "We know. You came anyway." "We are trying to keep 3 people alive," Harris said simply. "We came to the person most likely to help with that." Behind her, through the glass, she could see the nurses' station. Donna had moved from behind the desk and was now standing where she could see through the doors. Ray was beside her. Patrick was behind them both. They were watching. Maya thought about room 6, where Carol was waiting for her blood work. She thought about the patient list on the board. She thought about the things she had chosen when she drove south and rented the apartment and applied for this job. Then she thought about 3 people in the water who were not there yet. "I need to speak to my attending," she said. She turned and pushed back through the doors. Harlan was in the corridor. Someone had already told him, or he had heard, because he was already there, his arms crossed, watching her walk toward him. She told him what she had told. He listened without interrupting. "Go," he said, before she finished. "The patient in room 6 needs her second results checked, and the man in room 9 is waiting for cardiology consult. And the chart on bed 12 has a notation from overnight that hasn't been followed up." "Maya," Harlan said. She stopped. "Go," he said again. "We have this." She looked at him for a moment. At the station behind him, where Donna was now standing very still, with her coffee cup still in her hand, looking at Maya the way you look at someone when you are seeing them for the first time, even though you have been looking at them for weeks. Maya nodded. She went to the supply locker and retrieved her personal items, her bag, her phone, a jacket she kept there for cold nights. She came back to the station. She picked up the clipboard that she had been carrying that morning. the one with her patient notes on it, and she set it carefully on the desk in front of Donna. "Carol in room 6 is waiting for blood work," she said. "She worries, so tell her early when the results come back, even if you're busy. She'll be less anxious if she hears quickly." Donna looked at the clipboard. She nodded. Maya walked back through the doors. The two officers were waiting exactly where she had left them. She fell into step beside them without ceremony, and they moved together toward the elevator that would take them to the roof. The helicopter was waiting, a Navy H-60, which Maya knew well. She had logged more hours in this aircraft than she had logged in her car in the last 3 years. The pilot, a woman named Torres according to her flight suit, had the rotors already turning at low speed, the way you keep an engine warm when you know the departure is imminent. Maya got in, strapped in. Someone handed her a medical kit and she opened it and checked it with the same speed and attention she gave to everything. Not fast for the sake of looking fast, but fast because checking equipment is a thing you do thoroughly and without delay, and there is no reason it should take longer than it takes. Torres looked back at her once. "You're Reeves?" Torres asked. "Yes," Maya said. "I've heard of you," Torres said. Maya closed the medical kit. "Take us up," she said. The rotors increased. The aircraft lifted. Through the window as they rose, Maya could see the roof of Coastal General dropping away beneath them, and below that the hospital, the parking lots, the road, the city spreading out in all directions in the morning light. She could see, if she looked at exactly the right angle, the ambulance bay where she had arrived on her first shift, with her stiff scrubs and her crooked badge, and her paperwork held in both hands. She did not look at that angle for long. She turned her attention to the medical kit and ran her inventory again, because you always run it twice. And then she looked at the horizon, which was the ocean, moving toward her fast. Back on the ground, in the ER that was resuming its morning rhythm, Donna was standing at the nurse's station with the clipboard in her hands. She was reading Maya's notes, her patient notes from that morning, Carol in 6, the man in 9, the notation on bed 12. The handwriting was precise, the abbreviations specific, the priorities clear. She had seen thousands of nursing notes in 19 years. She knew what a good one looked like. This was not just a good one. This was the work of someone who had been doing this for a very long time in very difficult places, and who had brought all of that with them to a morning shift in a mid-sized emergency room and applied it with the same attention they gave to everything. Patrick appeared at her shoulder. He had watched the helicopter rise from the window at the end of the hall. He was quiet for a moment. "Who is she?" he said. Donna set the clipboard down. She picked up her coffee. It was cold now. "She's a nurse," Donna said. "A very good one." It was the simplest answer and also the truest one, and Donna knew, even as she said it, that it was not nearly enough. Maya had been gone for 2 hours and 40 minutes when the first word came back to the hospital. It did not come through official channels. It came through a phone call from a Coast Guard liaison to the hospital's administrative office, which passed it to Ray, who told Donna, who told no one else yet because she was still deciding what to do with it. The message was brief. The 3 critical patients were stable. All 3. The situation at sea, which had been deteriorating when the helicopter left, had been brought under control. The incoming transport carrying the 5 injured crew members was now 40 minutes from port, and the medical team that had flown out had made the difference in the time between when they arrived and when the hospital transport was ready. Donna read the message twice. She folded it. She put it in her pocket. The ER went on. Phones rang. Patients came in. A child with a broken arm was in room 2. Very brave, holding the arm against his chest with the careful stillness of someone who has figured out that not moving is better than moving. His mother was beside him, not as brave. Ray and Claire were with them. Patrick was at the station. He had been quieter since the helicopter left, in a way that was different from his usual quiet. He was doing his work. He was doing it well. But he was doing it the way you do something when you are also thinking about something else. He had gone to the window at the end of the hall 3 times since 9 o'clock. Each time he stood there for about 30 seconds looking at the sky, and then came back. Greg was covering room 3, which was occupied now by a man named Arthur who had come in after a fall and was being assessed for a fractured hip. Greg had been careful all day, more careful than usual, which was already careful. He had checked his medications twice before administering them, which was protocol, but he had done it more slowly than protocol required, more deliberately, with more attention, as if something had recalibrated in him and the new setting was slightly more precise than the old one. Harlan had been in and out all morning. He moved through the department the way he always moved, quickly, without excess. But once, passing the nurse's station, he paused and looked at Maya's empty chair at the computer terminal, and then looked at nothing in particular for about 3 seconds, and then kept moving. In room 6, Carol had received her blood work results. The numbers were normal, as Maya had said they would be. Claire had delivered the results quickly, as Maya had asked, and Carol had relaxed immediately, just as Maya had predicted, and was now watching the small television mounted to the wall of her room and waiting to be discharged. Carol asked Claire if the nurse who had been with her earlier was coming back. Claire said she was not sure. Carol said, "Tell her I said thank you. She talked to me like I was a person, not a chart." Claire said she would pass it along. Donna heard this from the hallway. She absorbed it. By noon, the department had the specific feeling that settles into a place after something significant has happened, and the people inside it are still adjusting to the new shape of things. It was not dramatic. It was not discussed openly. It was more like the quiet after a sound that has stopped. The room is the same, but the air in it is different, and everyone can feel it even if no one is saying so. At 12:40, the helicopter returned. Donna heard it first. The same heavy beat in the air, the same sense of pressure in the chest before the ears caught up. She walked to the window at the end of the hall. Patrick was already there. Greg appeared a moment later. The aircraft descended to the rooftop and settled with the same precision as the landing that morning. Deliberate, clean. 5 minutes passed. Then the elevator at the end of the corridor opened, and Maya walked out. She was wearing the same clothes she had left in. Her hair was different. The wind, and the motion of the aircraft, and the hours of work. Her hands were clean, but she had washed them recently, which meant she had been working with them. There was nothing dramatic about the way she walked. She was not flushed with the effort of what she had done. She was not visibly tired. She walked the way she always walked, at a steady pace, measuring the hallway, aware of everything in it. She went to the nurse's station. She sat down at her computer. She logged in on the first try. She pulled up her patient list. Patrick was watching her from across the station. He opened his mouth once, and then closed it. He did not seem to know what to say, which was unusual for him. He was a person who generally knew what to say. Donna came to the station. She set a coffee cup down next to Maya's keyboard. Black, 2 sugars, which was how Maya took it. Donna had noticed this on the 3rd or 4th shift without making a point of it. Maya looked at the cup. She wrapped both hands around it. Carol was discharged at 11, Donna said. Good results, she said to say thank you. Good, Maya said. Arthur in 3 has a confirmed fracture. Ortho is coming down at 2. I saw the flag when I logged in, Maya said. I'll be there. Donna nodded. She stayed at the station for a moment without moving, which was not like her. She was always moving. The word we got, Donna said carefully, was that all 3 were stable when you arrived. Yes, Maya said. And all 3 are still stable. Yes, Maya said. Donna was quiet. She looked at the board, which had 7 active patients and 2 pending. She looked at Maya's patient notes from that morning, which were still on the clipboard on the desk. I owe you an apology, Donna said. Maya looked up from the screen. She looked at Donna directly, with the same calm attention she gave to everything. No, she said. You don't. I put you on low acuity your first week, Donna said. You didn't know me, Maya said. That was the right call for what you knew. It wasn't, though. It was, Maya said, and her voice was level and clear. You don't send someone you don't know into a high acuity case. That's not caution. That's protocol. You were right. Donna absorbed this. She seemed to be having a conversation with herself about whether to push further. She decided not to. She picked up her coffee. She went back to her side of the station. Patrick found his voice sometime around 1 o'clock. He had been building toward it all morning, and it came out smaller than he had perhaps intended. I heard you stabilized 3 casualties in under 90 minutes, he said. He said it the way people say things when they are trying to communicate more than the words they are using. Maya was updating a chart. She did not stop typing. The pilot did half of it, she said. Torres is very good. Patrick stood there for a moment. He looked at his hands, then at the ceiling, then at Maya. About the first week, he began. It's fine, Maya said. It's fine, she said again, and the way she said it was not cold, and it was not dismissive. It was the way you say something is fine when you actually mean it, when you have already decided that the thing that happened is a part of what happened, and you are not carrying it separately from everything else. We didn't know each other. We know each other better now. He nodded. He went back to his tray. Greg did not say anything to Maya that afternoon. He simply worked beside her when their paths crossed, and once, when she needed a supply from the cabinet and her hands were occupied, he opened the cabinet for her without being asked. It was a small thing. It was also, in its way, exactly the right thing. Harlan came to the station at 3. He stood beside Maya for a moment without speaking, which was how he communicated most things he thought were important. How were they when you left? He asked finally. Holding, she said. The youngest one, 19 probably. He was scared. Harlan nodded. I told him the name of the port they were taking him to, Maya said. I told him what the hospital there looked like, how many floors, what color the waiting room was. She paused. I don't actually know what color the waiting room is, but he needed something specific to think about. Harlan was quiet for a moment. Did it work? He said. He stopped shaking, Maya said. Harlan nodded once more. He picked up a chart. He moved on. The afternoon passed. The department filled and emptied, and filled again with the ordinary emergencies of ordinary lives. Room 2 had a new patient. Room 7 had a discharge. Someone down the hall needed an interpreter, and Ray was trying to reach the service. The child with the broken arm had gone home with his mother, who had eventually been braver than she thought she could be. Maya worked through all of it. She was at the computer. She was at the bedside. She was in the corridor and the supply room and back at the computer again. She did not do it with performance. She did not do it to be seen. She did it the way she had always done it. The way she had done it in tents and aircraft and hospitals in places she did not talk about at family dinners. The work was the work. This room or that room. This sky or that one. At 5:30, Donna was restocking the station cabinet, and she looked over at Maya and said, without turning around, Same time tomorrow? Maya closed the chart she was finishing. Same time. 4 minutes early, Donna said. Probably, Maya said. Something almost like amusement moved across Donna's face. She kept her back turned so Maya would not see it. Then she turned around, because she was not the kind of person who hid things, and the amusement was already gone, replaced by something quieter and more honest. I'm glad you came here, Donna said. Maya looked at her. She held the look for a moment. So am I, she said. She meant it in a way that surprised her when she heard herself say it. 8 months of distance from everything she had known, and this ER with its ancient computers and its difficult passwords, and its low-acuity clipboard assignments, and this was where she had arrived. It was not where she had expected to land. It was, she thought, where she needed to be. She logged out of her computer at 6:10. She gathered her things from the locker. She walked through the correct exit, to the correct parking lot, and got into her car. She sat behind the wheel for a moment, as she always did. The sky was doing something quiet and orange over the buildings to the west. She watched it for a few seconds. She thought about the 19-year-old somewhere in a port hospital, maybe looking at a waiting room that may or may not have been the color she had described. She hoped he was not scared anymore. She hoped the specific detail had done its job and given him somewhere to put his mind, while his body did the work of recovering. She had done what she could. That was the only measure. That had always been the only measure. She started the engine. She drove home in the clear evening air, and for the first time in 8 months, she did not feel like she was going somewhere. She felt like she was coming back. She was at her desk the next morning at 6:56, badge straight, hands steady, the computer logging in on the first try. The ER was already moving. The monitors were already beeping. Somewhere a phone was ringing, and this time, before the second ring, someone answered it. Maya pulled up her patient list. She began.